Welcome to a special edition of the Mexican Soccer Show, is what we call the Mexican Soccer Show Express, where we take a couple of topics and spend a little time with them with our experts here. Today we have Naib Moran and Mr. Jason Marquez from Soccer Mexicana. Guys, how's it going today?
Bien, bien. Good. Everything good over here. Good to see you, Jason and Wiso.
All right, Jason, glad to have you back on the show.
Glad to be here. Ready to break down this Mexico-Canada.
All right. Well, we'll take two topics. The topics for today would be the Mexico-Canada, as we just saw them. The game on Friday, 54,374 people joining at the BC Place, where Mexico won 3-0, a very convincing win, almost walking over. Then in Mexico City, where a full Azteca wasn't too pleased with the game, and I would like to hear your reactions. First, Naib, overall in this matchup, how do you see Mexico? Do we already see the hand of Juan Carlos Osorio?
A good question. Straight away. I think we saw the same formation basically in the two games. The 4-3-3 was the one that Osorio seems to like and enjoy. I think we saw small lapses of good football, and there were certain stretches that weren't that appetizing or not memorable, as was the case in the second half at Estadio Azteca. But when you look at the record, 5 wins, 10 goals scored, 0 goals allowed. 6 of those 10 goals were scored by players 23 years and younger. 3 of those, of course, Tecatito Corona stealing the show and everything. But the process is moving forward, and we don't even, think about it. If you think about it, we didn't even need Vela and Giovanni in these games. And I think the backbone that Osorio will use, I think, throughout his whole process is going to be Moreno, Guardado, and Héctor Herrera, because those are the players that have had more minutes in these World Cup qualifying matches.
Yes, well said. Especially, it's not easy to win in Honduras. It's not easy to not get any goals, especially for 5 games. Jason, there's a little bit of controversy because at the Azteca, if you're not playing beautiful football and beating everyone 10-0, you're not doing the people pay to have a ver un espectáculo, like people like to say. But to you, towards the end of the game, Mexico wasn't the most dominant, even at times Canada having possession. Should we be worried?
Not at all. I don't think so. I think we didn't see that second 45 minutes in the Azteca wasn't necessarily the most entertaining football that we've seen from Mexico recently, but I think it was just a pragmatic second half. I think it was a tired team coming out the short turnaround from the game in Vancouver, and they looked tired, but also I think they were being cautious, not looking to give up the silly goals, pouring forward to entertain the crowd. Trying to get the extra goals to make a great score line, but also exposing a defense that has some vulnerability. They're playing a little safe, and I think that's okay. They got the result they needed, moving on to the next. I think we saw the sparks, or some sparks, in that first half, and we saw some interesting play. Second half wasn't beautiful, but I think it's fine. Nothing that causes any concern going forward, I don't believe.
Playing that 4-3-3, we saw lapses of how it can work through the middle. It looked like Juan Carlos Osorio told the team, this team's going to bunker, so let's take some shots. And we saw Tecatito with, an amazing shot in what he is. The whole world is looking at David Villa tweeting out golazo. Naib, you were at the game, and obviously you're seeing things that are different that we don't see on TV. Talk about a little bit about the players that you saw. Jason mentioned some of them were a little tired, but do you think some of these players that were called may not be called to Copa America, maybe some that failed? It comes into mind, Marco Fabian. A lot of people criticizing him because he really didn't do anything in the game, but we only see what the camera shows us. What are you seeing from the stands, from the press box, about his movements or anybody else that you saw on the team?
Yeah, I think it was a game where the possibilities of challenging in the one-on-ones were possible. Because a lot of people are saying that Marco Fabian was out of position, but I think he has enough gambeta, I think that's the word, or ability to take shots outside the box that he could have done against Canada, because his pieces were there. If you see how Tecatito Corona interpreted the game on Tuesday, he took on the defender. It was like, I know that you're not a good defender, and I'm going to make you look bad. I think that's what Fabian missed, and I think that's what players like Tecatito and Chucky Lozano brought to the table. They like to take chances, and I think that is something that it's not that we didn't see in Mexico, but it's something welcome. Especially when you're playing against teams that are bunkering down, like you said in the beginning. I mean, what I've noticed, and this is all going back to the Gold Cup in 2000 last summer, is a lot of teams try to flood the midfield against Mexico, but they're failing. Jamaica failed in the final. They five midfielders. Canada did sort of the same thing in Azteca, and they still failed. I think the class that Guardado and Herrera have in the midfield, and we'll see who the defensive midfielder is. I think that's the main question right now. I don't think it's going to be Marquez. I don't know if it's going to be Molina, but I think Gallito Vasquez and Jonathan Dos Santos will be serious contenders for that position as well.
You mentioned Gallito Vasquez, Jonathan Dos Santos. These are players that were not on the call-up. I know Jonathan because of injury reasons. Naib, to you again. Is there anybody else that you see that maybe might make it? Because there's 2 friendlies coming up in a couple of months before the Copa America. But other than maybe a Gallito Vasquez, anyone else that they should be on the lookout? That Giovanni and Vela, of course, that might be maybe a memo. But anyone else? Maybe that people aren't seeing that Juan Carlos might call or deserves a call-up at least in what you saw that's needed.
Yeah. I think it was interesting because we saw players like Pizarro, and then as well we saw Orbelín Pineda and Brizuela come from Chivas, and they didn't even get minutes. But if there's a player who I think was not in this list and could be in the Centenario list is Raúl Titos López. If Chivas goes forward in towards the end of the season, Lopez starts getting a couple of assists, I think he'll be an excellent competition for Paul Aguilar, because at the moment Paul Aguilar looks like the lone man there. Like, he's the starter, he's the owner of that spot, and I think he needs someone to be there to be pushing him to do better, because I think against Canada I saw a lot of participation from Layun coming from the left. I think Aguilar could have done the same thing, and I did see some offensive plays from Aguilar in the game at Azteca, but there weren't that effective, typical Aguilar plays in the right flank. But I think he needs someone there to be bugging him. So, and I think Deditos Lopez could be the one.
Well, 5 games unbeaten, and not only that, no goals scored against Juan Carlos Osorio's side in the last 5 games, which is una racha. I think it's second. I think we have around 200 more minutes, and there is some racha in the 70s where Mexico was scoreless. But Jason, to you, 5 games, already qualifiers. Obviously the Senegal game's there. Is this team ready with all they can have coming into the Copa America? Remember, we have 2 friendlies, one against Paraguay in Atlanta, and then a friendly against Chile in San Diego, which will get us ready to Copa America. But do you see already this team being competitive, especially to face the number 1 CONMEBOL team right now in qualifiers with Luis Suarez as viewer away, where in Phoenix versus Mexico, that's coming up as a first game. But if you're looking at an assessment, would you think that there's ready, or does Juan Carlos Osorio need to find that extra missing piece for us to finally be ready?
I don't think there's any missing pieces at the moment. I don't think there's something that is this dire need. I think there's depth issues. I think there's players that need to be challenged, as Naeem mentioned. It's certainly that right back position, I think, is one that needs to be bolstered and certainly secured with some depth. But and the back line always provides some scariness. But I mean, I think at every position there's players that we can pencil in and say, okay, this is locked down. These spots are locked down. And certainly when you're putting some of these youngsters into the fold, and we saw Pizarro put in a pretty good performance in a short stint in the sub in the Azteca, you have enough options in some of these positions that I don't think there's any worrisome spots, but and I think they could be ready. I mean, you love a few more games for all this, like that number 1 team that Osorio is planning on putting out there this summer to gel, instead of just those 2 games right before it kicks off in Phoenix. So I don't know, as ready as they could be, I suppose. I don't think there's big red flags at the moment.
Well, good. I mean, coming in, and I agree with you, right? There's just a little bit of things that this defensive mid to see would come in. I'm excited to see, or at least who's going to come in from the Europeos. And the Giovanni Dos Santos, de Vela, I tweeted out that Tecatito showing that we don't need Vela on the team, and people pretty much butchered me. They're like, no, don't go too far because of what he can do, but he's making strides. Guys, well, that's our Mexico versus Canada kind of review. I hope you all enjoyed it. Let's switch gears into what many people are expecting this weekend. It feels like we've been away for so long from Liga MX, but the drama is still there. It's already bubbling, especially with the Chivas de Guadalajara and also a Pumas game that's coming up. Kind of funny story, Chivas already trolling on the internet, trying to make this big. The last time that Pumas won in Jalisco is 1982, and I think they threw out a little video out there that all the things that's happened since then. That's the big storyline. Something about, I talked to Pumas fans, it doesn't happen. It used to be the Jalisco, and now at the OmniLife or at the Chivas Stadium, something about Pumas not going in. But Naive, to you, the big story that they don't want to call it a clásico, but it's definitely a heated game when it comes down to it. And do you think Pumas can finally beat Chivas in Jalisco, in Guadalajara there in that stadium?
No, I think I think Chivas got a lot of confidence after the win against Rayados. I think that was sort of the important kind of way to solidify Almeida's place as Chivas head coach. I think I forgot who said it this week. I forgot the name of the player, but he said that they see Almeida as a friend, not as a coach. So I think the communication there with player and coach is good. I just think that the results were not coming. And now I think after the win against Monterrey, they could start a streak. And you know how Liga MX works. If you start getting, let's say, 3 consecutive wins, all of a sudden Chivas could be in this Liguilla picture. When in the beginning we thought it wasn't going to be there. So Pumas, they got to focus with the Libertadores and also with the league. So I still see I see Chivas winning this one, actually.
All right. Well, there you go. They maybe stay unbeaten. Jason, what are the other fixtures that you see that are important for this weekend that we should be looking at? Already Liguilla contenders maybe on there. What are we looking at?
Yeah, I think that Chivas Pumas game is probably the biggest marquee match, but with those two big teams playing. But I think it's probably a likely 0-0 draw. But there are other matches that are probably going to be a lot more exciting to watch, and also have a lot of implications. And with some of the teams that are probably going to be Liguilla matches, as you mentioned, like Cruz Azul and Pachuca, facing off in Estadio Azul, could be a really interesting one. I think there'll be some goals in that one for sure. Pachuca, pretty good chance, I think, to steal one from Cruz Azul there. Cruz Azul missing a few players on the front line as well, so they could be hampered a bit. And also Rayados playing in León. Just a fantastic matchup. It would be interesting to see how Monterrey rebounds from that Chivas match you discussed, and certainly heading into León, probably one of the toughest places to play in Liga MX is going to be a tough one. So those two matches on Saturday should be really good ones. A lot of teams, too, as now you mentioned, going into next week with CONCACAF Champions League and Libertadores. So there's a lot of teams who have a short turnaround after this game this weekend, too, that might be kind of looking ahead to what's coming this week. So that we'll see how that might affect some of these weekend matches as well.
Well, interesting to see, especially your matchup and what are the games that we got that everyone wants to watch. Naive, last questions before we end the game. Is Trophies the real deal?
No, I think I think it's too early. But the goals that he scored in Monterrey were special. I think they're top quality goals. But it's all a process. And I think Chivas is doing a good job in sort of handling his PR, his public relations sort of deal, because it's easy to bombard him immediately after those 2 goals in Mexico. You know how the media over here is overhypes things for the most part. But I think they've controlled it pretty well. I think also with Orbelín Pineda, I actually had a chance to say hi to Orbelín after the match against Canada, and still the same guy I met in Querétaro now he's in Chivas. It's down to earth, really chilled, doesn't talk to the press, really focused on the objectives, and I think that's how Trophies should take them. So if the results keep coming, well, that's great. And if he keeps scoring goals, that's even better for Chivas because they need the goals. Mm-hmm. But Leon Monterrey, like Jason said, I think that will be a great match, especially with Monterrey sort of not having to deal with a CONCACAF champion or a Copa Libertadores. Now, the players already that play in South America, like Sanchez, Cardona, they already dealt with them. Now they can focus on the league and go all the way to the final. That's what Rayados wants.
All right, well there you go. It's not early to tell. Hopefully Trophies isn't maybe another Carlos Fierro that they just sell off, or a Cubo Torres is just sending off. And I know there's a lot of people that are waiting for him, even though it's only been one game, guys. Well, that's the Mexican Soccer Show Express. A couple topics where we dive right in. If you would like to listen to the full Mexican Soccer Show, it's on Mondays at 7 o'clock Pacific, and please keep it here with by following us at Facebook and on Twitter with the Mexican Soccer Show. Naive Moran, as you can see, Naive's at Naive Moran on Twitter, ESPN FC. Great articles. There's one up right now with Pavel Pardo. You definitely gotta see it. If Naive you can retweet it again. It's a great article. Kind of seeing where we will be. So awesome. And then Jason, Soccer Mexicana, who is kicking everybody's butt in our quinela that we have every weekend with Liga MX. Looks like there's no way of beating this guy. But Jason, thank you very much. Naive, thank you again for joining us. And guys, this has been another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show Express. Hasta la próxima. See you guys on Monday.
Good night.